We got 10-1 Alabama taking on 6-5 Auburn in the Iron Bowl. This game's going to kick off 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. Alabama is a 19.5 point favorite. Now, the last time we saw Auburn, they were defeated by South Carolina 21-17. And boy, when I tell you, War Eagle fans were not happy with that game. A lot of you Auburn fans were not happy. We saw TJ Finley start. A lot of people wanted to see TJ Finley play all year. A lot of people have been super critical of Bo Nix, and we finally saw that. And apparently it's pretty obvious that TJ Finley is not better than Bo Nix. And I feel like Auburn really missed Bo Nix in that game against South Carolina. And a lot of people have been heavily critical on Bo Nix this year. And normally I'm pretty critical on Bo Nix' performance. I'm not the biggest Bo Nix fan if you have been subscribed to the channel for over the last couple of years. But I feel like this year, Bo Nix has kind of been underappreciated. I feel like he's had a pretty solid season for Auburn in terms of being able to extend plays, giving his wide receivers more time to get open. And I definitely feel like Auburn missed the ability to extend the plays with Bo Nix not playing in the last game against South Carolina. And I feel like that was a pretty large reason why they lost that game. But also the play calling wasn't good neither. Like, there have been a lot of people who have been heavily critical on the offensive coordinator for Auburn. The defense isn't playing good right now. And this was an Auburn team that was coming off some really big wins not too long ago. So this team has kind of ended their season on a pretty disappointing note. They have lost 3 games in a row. They lost to Texas A&M. They ended up allowing Mississippi State to come back by several possessions to win the game. Like, didn't Mississippi State score like 40 unanswered points? You lost to South Carolina. Like, Auburn's defense over the last 3 games has gotten shredded. They struggled to stop the run. They have struggled to stop the pass. Their secondary isn't really offering that much resistance. It pretty much looks like every time the opposing quarterback goes against that Auburn defense, they're throwing the ball against air. Like, South Carolina's quarterback, Jason Brown, was 10 of 15 for 157 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. So when you look at the Auburn defense in this game, I think it's pretty fair to say that they're going to get carved up. Now, I really do like the interior of Auburn's defensive line. Like, I think their defensive line is pretty solid. And when you look at Alabama's offensive line this year, their offensive line hasn't really been good like how it has been in years past. But this Auburn offense probably should be able to put up points on Alabama's defense, even with TJ Finley at QB. I still feel like Auburn should be more than capable of being able to put up some yards and put up some points on that Alabama defense, because like there have been a lot of Auburn fans who have been critical of their defense's performance, and they've been heavily critical of their defensive coordinator. There have also been a lot of Alabama fans who have been coming for the head of their defensive coordinator. The secondary doesn't look good, and you saw what Arkansas did last week. I mean, Arkansas gave Alabama a scare last week, and even though Alabama won the game 42-35, many Alabama fans were going into that game thinking that Alabama was just going to roll over Arkansas, and that Arkansas was just going to fall on their back and not offer them a fight. And Arkansas, man, KJ Jefferson put up a performance. 22 of 30, 326 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Traylon Burks had 8 receptions, 179 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like, Alabama's secondary absolutely got gas, and there were a lot of Alabama fans who were just looking at that game like that. Like, it was something that you normally don't really see coming from Arkansas, because when you think about Arkansas, if they were going to play Alabama and you were to ask Alabama fans, okay, do you feel like Arkansas is going to have more success on the ground, or do you feel like they're going to have more success through the air? 99% of Alabama fans probably would have said that if Arkansas is going to have success moving the ball, it probably will be on the ground, because that's been the strength of the Arkansas offense all year. The trademark has been the run game with KJ Jefferson and the 4 or 5 different backs that they rotate in. Arkansas is one of the best rushing teams in America, and this year they just went off throwing the football on that Alabama secondary. And if you're Alabama fan going into this game, like, you got to play Georgia in Atlanta in a couple of weeks, right? So you probably would like to see Alabama win this game and win this game convincingly. You probably would like them to cover also, to give you a little bit more confidence going into that SEC championship game matchup against Georgia. But for Alabama, I've been really concerned about how this defense has looked over the last couple of weeks. I have really been disappointed with the performance, and let's not get anything, construed like Alabama still is one of the best teams in America, but this has probably been one of the more worst Alabama teams that I've seen Nick Saban coaching over the last couple of years. So when I look at Auburn, obviously we know that the strength of this team and the strength of their offense is going to be, how many big plays can Tank Bigsby generate? Because Tank Bigsby pretty much was the only reason why they were staying alive against South Carolina last week. 22 carries, 164 rushing yards, 1 touchdown on the ground. So if Auburn's going to be able to keep up with Alabama's high-scoring offense, because let's be honest, Auburn's defense probably isn't going to do much. If you're an Auburn fan, you should be happy, and you should be lucky enough if you're able to even get 2 or 3 stops in this game, rather that be via turnovers or stopping Alabama flat and cold on 3rd down, force them to punt, or getting off the field on 4th down and getting the ball back to your offense. So for Auburn, I do feel like they are going to be able to stay with Alabama at a point in this game, because you look at how productive Tank Bigsby in the run game has been for Auburn all this year, and you look at that Alabama defense. But even if Alabama comes in and Nick Saban has mentality that we're just going to go all in on stopping Tank Bigsby, I still feel like even though they do have TJ Finley in and not Bo Nix, I do feel like when you look at how poor that Alabama secondary has played this year, they still should be able to put up some big yardage through the air on that Alabama secondary. So I feel like with this being a rivalry game, this game shouldn't be a blowout. No matter how bad Auburn is and how good Alabama is, like, this game still is a rivalry matchup. It still should be pretty competitive. There were a lot of people, myself included, who thought that the LSU-Alabama game was going to be a blowout and it was going to be a slaughter fest. It ended up being a really competitive and hard-fought game that Alabama had to scratch and claw their way to win 20-14 in that matchup. So I expect this game to be just as competitive as that LSU game was. I'm going to take Alabama to win. 31-20 is going to be my final score prediction in this matchup. I think Alabama does pull out the win, but I really think that this game is going to be really competitive. I don't really think that Alabama is going to cut off the throats of Auburn. I really do think that Auburn is going to come into this game and they're still going to have a lot of opportunities to win, but I just feel like all in all, I don't trust that Auburn defense to be able to show up in key moments and get key stops, similar to what happened to Arkansas last week. You feel like you have Alabama against the ropes. Your offense is doing everything that it wants to do against Alabama's defense, but then Bryce Young and Jamison Williams come on the field and they just take your heart out by having a big play. And I think that's going to be the similar fate that this Iron Bowl game takes in this year, because I feel like there's going to be opportunities where Auburn looks like they have Alabama against the ropes, but Alabama's defense ends up failing them. But at the same time, their offense ends up coming through in big moments of the game. So that's why I'm going to take Alabama to get the win here. I do think that Auburn won't get shredded by 3 possessions, so I'm going to take Auburn with the under. So I'm going to take Auburn to cover, and I'm going to take Alabama to win outright.